I pulled this 3.07 rear end out of a turbo diesel, and I'm planning to put it in my 240D 4-speed. Now, I've done this conversion a couple times. It's a great conversion. I'll link below to another video because I'm not going to explain all the reasons why I do this, but I don't like driving a 240D down the freeway with it screaming at you at 70 miles an hour. That's the main reason. There's a couple things I want to show you here if you're going to do something like this, if you're going to buy a rear end, whether you're going to change the ratio or just replace the rear end. A couple things that are really important. Number one, always check the ratio number right down here. Somebody may sell you a 2.88 or a 3.07 rear end, and it might not be what they said it is. So before you get too carried away, make sure you scrape this area off right in here and look for that number right here at the bottom. It'll be 3.07, just like you see here. Next thing I did is I went ahead and cleaned everything. You don't want to be pulling this cover off the pumpkin housing until you get it thoroughly cleaned. I used some solvent and a brush, and I drained it. Make sure you drain this before you pull this back cover off. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull the cover off, and I'll show you what I want to inspect inside here before I ever consider putting it back into a car. Now, most of these covers are put on with a sealant. There's no gasket, but you're going to probably have to give a little whack to loosen it up. There we go. Now, you're going to do this procedure if you're going to replace your axles, or if you're going to replace the boots on your axles. You're going to have to remove them from the center section of the differential. And I want to show you a little trick on how to do that. There's two clips that hold these axles right in here, and we're going to have to get in there with something and pull the clip off. Do you know what tool works the best? Believe it or not, it's my dash pull tool. It's got to be really strong. You got to get in there and hook onto that little eye. Man, look at that. How would you get that out without this tool right here? It'd be a real pain. All right, once that clip is out, the axle is going to slide right out like this. And when it comes out, you may find there are some very thin spacer washers. You want to keep those orientated to which side and replace them when you go to replace the axle. Now I can test this axle with that out of the rear end. You can get a hold of this clip. There we go. There's your other clip. Get a close-up of that. You can see what that looks like. That holds the axles into the differential. Now I want to show you what you want to inspect. Of course, you want to inspect the teeth for adverse wear, but there's something else. These rear ends are very robust. I hardly ever see failures except in this one area. Most of the time when you get one of these rear ends, you probably are not going to have the luxury of having driven the car and listened to how it sounds. So you need to look at things very carefully. You know, roll it through and look at every tooth on the ring gear. Make sure there's no chips or adverse wear right in here. You also want to look down into the differential gears. Rotate them all the way through. Feel for roughness and look for adverse wear in the differential gears. But this is the thing I've seen fail the most. That's this pin here that holds the shaft for these differential gears. This pin will start to wear. It's a press fit, and it'll start to wear right there. And when it does, you'll get clunking in the rear end. So if you have a clunking or clattering sound in the rear end, suspect that might be the problem. Now this rear end looks really good. Of course, I'm going to replace the side seals. I'm going to put the axles back in. But the other thing is, when you put this rear cover back on, don't use any type of RTV or silicone. I see this used all the time. It's really a poor sealant for these covers. Use an anaerobic sealant. If you're not familiar with it, we do carry it on my website. But you'll need to do this procedure whether or not you're changing rear ends or changing axles or repairing axles. These are just a few tips you might want to keep in mind when you go after this job.